So we are now recording and I hope maklaro na ko ninyo. Maklaro naman kako ninyo. Klaro lang? Alright. So last meeting no, we discussed yes, Abdallah. Question? Or napindot ra to? Okay. Sige. Alright. So last time we discussed the 7 particular realities na parte sa ethics or ethics in relation to everything else, right? And when we say everything else, of course, we only mentioned pila ta buok 7, di ba? Ito, religion, science, law, politics, psychology, art, death. But when we speak of these things, of course, dili raman siya parte sa, that's not the only 7, dili raman 7 things ang naa sa realidad sa atong kinabuhi, right? They are important parts kay syempre these are aspects na we are immediately encountering. Diba? You see science, you see the progress of time, you see this and that. Mga issues sa dakbayan, mga issues sa nasod, and every other kind of institutions that affect us personally, not just as a group or not just as a community, but also individually as a person. Tama, di ba? And of course, with all that said, we have to understand what standards, okay? What standards do all these concepts follow? And how is it na ma-relate ni nato sa ethics? How can we say, how do we understand the concept of a standard, di ba? So standards in general, di ba? We all have standards. We all have ideals, right? Kinsa imong ideal member sa imong favorite na band, kinsa imong ideal or inyong what is your ideal kind of person, or your ideal partner, your ideal instructor, di ba? So with those ideals, we make up standards, right? So sa karon, if you ma-browse raman ninyo ang Facebook, you see this concept, di ganing mga ginaingon nila na red flag, green flag. Those are basically concepts, or those are enabling notions that help us make our own standards. Medyo personally ay oehan ko sa term na red flag, green flag. Okay, that's a new term, but it's not necessary. All you need to do is make up your standard. Diba? Kung say standard nimo sa lalaki, kung say standard nimo sa babae. Diba? Are you only up for the looks, or do you want to grow with that person? Diba? So how do you understand standards? And especially, how do we understand standards sa konsepto nato sa atong ginatun-an, which is ethics. Okay? So let's understand standards. Okay? May I ask Saripada to please read the PowerPoint? Okay. Karim, can you be the one to read the PowerPoint, please? Very good. Thank you so much. Also, kana palang daan, morality in itself is a standard naman. Diba? When you understand the notion na, for example, we go, balik-balik ko ni nato na example, rape is wrong. Diba? We have a moral standard na dili dapat mamugusog tao na manghilawas nato. Diba? And in general, we don't want to force people to do anything. Tama, diba? Kay mawala ang concept na naas life freedom, mawala ang concept na they are their own individual person. Kay wala kay tingog. Sige lang. Gina-record ni, don't worry. Okay. Please message Mr. Gonzaga ba to? Na he can watch this later. Okay? So mo to siya. Where was I? Okay. So morality in itself is a standard. But how do we understand moral standards? Diba? How do we conceptualize, or how do we categorize this notion? Diba? If morality is the higher concept, what then are moral standards? Okay, thank you. Alright, so mo to siya. Verse, what is it? So, moral standards then are these things, or it is a tool. Isa siya na tool na magamit nato para ma-regulate atong expectations, di ba? Society has a standard. Kung say standards na when it comes to fiesta, dapat bibo ba or okay ra na mingaw, di ba? Di mo dito mo sugot na kung mag-fiesta, mingaw ra, right? That's why daghan kay tag events, we have a standard to follow. And sometimes we even follow the standards of other places. Tama, di ba? But on a personal level, we have our own standards. Tama ba? You have a standard as to whether or not what kind of person you want to be with or the person you want to be as individually. So how then do we understand moral standards? Okay. So basically, ang atong gusto tanawon karon is the differentiation between moral and non-moral standards. So kung ang standards is a higher notion, diba? It is a more general notion. We have two particular notions or ideas or types of standards na kinahanglan nato sabton for us to have a better understanding of what these standards actually are. Okay? So we have what we call moral standards and then non-moral standards. So when we say non-moral, let's avoid this mistake early on. So when I say non-moral, what pasabot wala nato kinahatagan og moral consideration. Okay? It means that it's not about being immoral. So we're just technically looking at standards that we don't have to use moral consideration. Ang duha ka standard, they look into right and wrong behavior. Okay? But they they have two different uses, right? And not merely uses, pero lahi po ilang mga gina-consider. Okay? So let's try to understand further. Moral standard. So let's try to understand what the characteristics of a moral standard is para mas ilhan nato unsa diri pasabot sa moral standards. Okay? So when you try to understand something, you try to understand the characteristics, unsay traits sa usa ka butang, sa usa ka thing na gusto nimo mahibaw-an, right? So moral standards, okay, involve the rules people have about the kinds of action they believe are morally right and wrong, as well as the values they place on the kinds of objects they believe are morally good and morally bad. Some ethicists equate moral standards with moral values and moral principles. Okay. So, how do we understand this? So, the main focus is on behavior na maingnan nato or ma-judge nato na morally correct or moral and morally wrong or immoral. Okay? So, it still deals with right and wrong behavior. So, for example, kung mangawat ko, sakto ba ng mangawat? Tama? Yes or no? Mali bang sakto ang mangawat? Dili, di ba? Okay. How about the rest? Okay. Sakto mangawat? How about the rest? Dili. How about the rest? Okay. Dili. Okay. So, dili. So, you can say na dili maayo mangawat. Okay? The action itself ang atong ginatanaw. And to some extent, ang intention po. Right? So, what do you think? So, we use moral standards para makabaluta or natay basihanan kung unsay angayan or angay buhaton o dili angay buhaton. 'Di ba? Angay ba nang manumbag kag tao tungod trip lang nimo? 'Di ba? Angay ba na malikasan nimo yung mama? 'Di ba? Angay ba na mangaway lang ka para lang mamikil? 'Di ba? So these are things na makita ninyo. You can see this na sa panglantaw palang daan, lain siya, ngilad siya, 'di ba? In other words, very wrong siya, 'di ba? All right? Ito na gets niyo so far. So let's try to further understand unsay characteristics ani niya. Okay? How do we further know para ma-differentiate jud nato siya sa non-moral standards? Okay? So naay unom, okay? The following 6 characteristics of moral standards further differentiate them from non-moral standards. Okay? Letter A, may I ask si Abian to please read the PowerPoint. Okay, very good. Thank you so much. So, when we say na siya'y apektado ang kinabuhi sa tao, it could be ikaw, it could be someone else, or pwede po siya kinabuhi sa lain tao. Okay? Ang imong action na moapekto sa tao, whether it's in a good way or bad way, mahulog siya sa moral standards. Okay? Kung, for example, food, if you give food to the kanang pulubi dito sa cathedral dapit, would you judge that to be a good behavior? Yes or no? Okay. So maayo siya. Kay nihatag mong siya pagkaon. For example, si Abian naghatag og pagkaon sa katong pulubi dito sa cathedral. So those of us who see it, 'di ba? Automatically we say maayo siya, 'di ba? Not unless judgmental ta mo ingon ta ng pakitang tao lang, which is in itself mali gihapon, 'di ba? So whether it's physical harm, whether it's emotional, psychological, or kada bitawng nang daot ka, mahulog siya sa moral standards na ma-judge nimo kung maayo ba ni siya na binuhatan or dili. Ngano kay apektado ang kinabuhi sa tao. Okay? It affects the life of the person, whether it is a serious wrong or a significant benefit. Okay? I-compare nato sa we'll compare it to non-moral standards later on. Right? So that's the first. Ang ikaduha, may I ask si Dumagit, please read the PowerPoint. Yes. Ikaw. Hegemonic. Sige. Okay, very good. Thank you. So, just to clarify first, ang self-interest is not the same as being selfish. Okay? Self-interest is okay. Selfishness is mao ang problema. Okay? Self-interest can be good. Akong self-interest, gusto ko matudlo ninyo, kung na masabtan ninyo. That is my self-interest. Di ba? Kaya you can have the consideration of other people sa imong self-interest. Kung selfish lang ko, wala ko'y labot kung makatuon ba mo or dili. Nga na siya. Okay? Let's get that out of the way. I'm sure some of you know that, pero just to clarify lang Jude early on. Okay? So what does this mean? Okay? Ang moral standards mas angay sundon kumpara sa uban values. Okay? Mas unahon dapat. It's not to say na ang uban values kay dili maayo. Okay? But ang moral standards have higher obligations. Okay? So, let's say for example, is it good na isip mga estudyante na mo diri, whether it's face-to-face or online, maminaw mo take note mo sabto ninyo akong gipang-ingon sa lecture, maayo ba na siya? Yes or no? Okay. So, technically, maayo na siya. Okay? Pero, let's say for example, God forbid, while ga-lecture ko karon, imong one of your family, or whether it's family or not, na itao sa gawas sa inyong balay or sa hallway kung naa ka sa school, let's say what if gidunggab siya kalit, then ikaw ang ikaw ray makatabang, di ba? Unsay unahon nimo, ang tao nagidunggab or ang atong lecture? Pilit. Hello, mic test. Hello. Nasabtan to? Hello. Okay. Wala. Okay, balik ko na ako. 'Di ba earlier niingon ta na isip ang estudyante, maayo siya na value na maminaw ka. Maayo siya na value na mag-take note ka. Pero what if for example, na ay tao, whether family ba na nimo, friend or dili or stranger, gidunggab og kalit sa gawas yung balay or sa hallway sa inyong classroom. Gidunggab siya, wala ga klase ta, di ba? Ahay mas unahon ninyo, ang akong lecture or ang tao na gidunggab? ang tao. Okay. Okay. Very good. So, di ba, common sense naman na siya, di ba? Since kabalutan, nasa sugod pa lang, sa pinakauno na characteristic is that dapat mahulog sa moral standards ang usa ka butang kung apektado ang kinabuhi sa usa ka tawo. Alright? Then, since kana ang atong basihanan pod, ang first thing, kailangan po nato una-una na ay mas angay i-priority. Kaya palihog sa ako mute pakilan. Okay? Ako na lang. Okay. So, when the life of another person is affected, di ba? Ang moral standards mo dikta, mo obliga sa tua, na kana ang angay i-priority, kana mo angay unahon. Okay? Di man ko mamatay kung di mo minaw sa akong lecture. Di pod mo maunsa personally kung mawala mo kalit, di ba? That's why we mean it's good that studious ka. Maayo ng maminaw ka as students. But if there is a higher priority, ambot lang. Anyway, sige lang. Pilit-pilit ko guys, madunggan ko ninyo. Anyway. Again, naka-record ni siya, so you can watch this again. Okay. Hello, mic test. Oh, wala kay sir. Hello. Mic test. Wala gyapon. Let me try something. Okay. Jesus Christ. Okay, wait lang. Wait lang. Klasa, wait lang. Okay, wait lang. Okay, hello. How about now? Panungan ko ninyo? Alright. Sige. Okay. So, mas klaro na. Okay, mas kusog day ang data. Okay. So, mutos. Alright. So, basically, moral standards mas mo lamang dapat. Kinahanglan siya na kung naay mas priority. Okay? For example, naay na-injure. Then, galakaw ka or nakay atiman na sa klase. Okay? Mulamang na dapat. That's what we mean by na siya hegemonic authority. Ma-override niya ang uban expectations sa society. Okay? Right? Katulo. Moral standards are not established by authority figures. Okay? Moral standards are not invented, formed, or generated by authoritative bodies or persons such as nations, legislative bodies. Ideally, instead, these values ought to be considered in the process of making laws. In principle, therefore, moral standards cannot be changed or nullified by the decisions of particular authoritative body. One thing about these standards, nonetheless, is that its validity lies on the soundness or adequacy of the reasons that are considered to support and justify them. Okay, so technically, ang gusto nato ipasabot ani is that ang moral standards dili ginahimo sa tao. Okay? Dili siya gikan sa authority, dili siya gikan sa gobyerno, dili siya gikan sa ako for example, as the authority figure sa klase nato. Diba? So if I technically ang moralidad dili magbag-o base sa kagustuhan sa mas nakalamang sa tuwa na posisyon. Okay? So let's say technically ang moral standards they exist not because gihimo sa tao pero tungod sa common sense sa tao. Diba? If you look at the last sentence, diba, ang validity sa usa ka moral standard kay gikan sa soundness or adequacy of the reason. In other words, to simplify these words, common sense. Diba? Common sense ng dili ka dapat mangawat. Common sense ng kung naa kay partner, ngano dili na ka dapat mag-cheat, di ba? That is common sense. And sadly, usahay ang common sense dili kay common, di ba? But that nonetheless is the point, di ba? It's not that gihimo siya sa atong mga nasta kalamang sa tua, sa posisyon or sa gobyerno, pero sila dapat ang muuna. Ang mga balaod na ilang ipasad, ideally, unta, gina-consider nila unsay sakto, unsay morally sakto. Okay? So, though it, and given that ang dili ang tao ang gahimo sa moralidad, okay, ang moralidad dili magbago. Morality doesn't change. Moral standards do not change, di ba? If you recall the example we had before, ang rape kay mali, even if there will be a law that will legalize rape, di ba? Of course, wala di man dun na mahitabo. But example, if that were to happen, it does not stop rape being wrong. In the same light, na ay mga prinsipyo sa moralidad na dili magbago. Okay? Wala nakadepende sa gusto sa tao. Wala siya nakadepende sa kagustuhan sa usa ka grupo or sa usa ka tao ang pagkasakto or pagkamali sa usa ka standard. Okay? Ang pangawat is wrong, whether illegalize siya or dili. Ang pagpatay og tao is wrong, whether illegalize siya or dili. Of course, depending on the circumstances. Gawas na kung self-defense ang nahitabo. Okay? So, dili siya nakadepende sa authority. Ga-exist siya on its own, independent self. Okay? Kaupat, moral standards have the trait of universalizability. Universalizability, buot pasabot, ma-universal siya. May apply siya sa tanan. Okay? Simply put, it means that everyone should live up to moral standards. To be more accurate, however, it entails that moral principles must apply to all who are in the relevantly similar situation. If one judges that Act A is morally right for a certain person P, then it is morally right for anybody relevantly similar to P. Okay? So, when you say similar, dili po pasabot na kinahanglan na ka sa same sitwasyon sa ubang tao para magbuhat kag maayo or mo likay ka sa daotan. Okay? It's not about unsay personal situation nimo sa life, but how you are able to manage or how you are able to act given certain circumstances. Okay? So if for example ikaw, if moingon ka na maayo nang mutabang ta sa mga uyamot, sa poor, okay, then sakto ra na ang tao or ako or ikaw na mutabang sa tao. Okay? So if one judges that Act A, let's say ang Act A, the action being giving to the poor, kay sakto para for example sa ako okay, then sakto pud siya sa imo okay, whether you're rich or poor. Though relevantly similar does not mean na pareha mo financial status. Okay? But it simply means that similar ta in the sense na tao ra mangyapon ta, natay kapasidad na magbuhat og maayo. Okay? So if doing this is good, this particular thing, for me it's good, then it should be good for you. Okay? So wala ko gabase sa kaayuhan sa kabutang tungod ako'y gaingon, pero kabalo ko na maayo ni siya. So, since maayo ni siya, okay, then hinaot unta or dapat pod sakto pod siya sa imo Okay? The example again, giving to the poor or tabangon ninyo na maka-livelihood ang mga pobre para di sila magsalig sa gobyerno. Okay? Things like that. Tingnan na bitaw. If that is the right thing to do, then you don't really have to do it, but you can at least agree na sakto ni siya ang iyang ginabuhat. Okay? That's what I mean by universalizable or ma-universalize nato ang standards universal siya sa tanan. Bahalag Pinoy ka or Inchik ka, bahalag mo go back in time ka sa 1930s. Okay? These things are considered right and always. And things that are wrong will always be considered wrong. Okay? Kalima, moral standards are based on impartial considerations. Okay? Moral standards are based on impartial considerations. When we say impartial, kung Bisayo nato, wala siya ginadapigan na tao. Wala siya ginadapigan na kagustuhan sa usa ka grupo. Okay? Moral standards do not evaluate standards on the basis of the interests of a certain person or group, but one that goes beyond personal interests to a universal standpoint in which each person's interests are impartially counted as equal. Okay? So, when you do good, mubuhat kag maayo tungod kay maayo siya. Okay? And when you do good, you try to, or you have to take into consideration ang interests sa tanan. Okay? Dili man ni siya politics na moingon ra kag kuan, dili ka bias pero bias jud di ka, di ba? As we've seen sa past election pa lang, di ba? So you don't look at one side, you don't take the opinion of one person lang. Ang imong basihanan jud dapat is, or dili basihanan, ang imong dapat tan-awon is ang tibuok picture, ang tibuok sitwasyon, ang tibuok circumstances. Okay? You don't just look at one side. Kay ang kaayuhan, ang moralidad, mutan-aw na siya sa tanan. Dili lang sa imuha or sa akua or sa grupo nato. Okay? Tan-awon niya pati ang side sa lain. Labi na sa mga lain na tao na epektado. Okay? So you don't, when you want to do good, gusto kag hustisya, pero kang kinsang hustisya sa imo alang or sa katawhan. Diba? You want to be fair, pero kung nay opportunity na ang pagka-unfair or ang corruption kay mo benepisyo sa imo, makaingon baka na impartial ka, diba? Usahay ko sugkay ta mag-ingon na gusto tag hustisya, gusto tag pagbag-o, but we don't really do anything to prove na gusto jud ta ato. Okay? We only prove na gusto lang ta ato tungod makabenepisyo ta. Which is in and of itself not wrong, pero sometimes, ang tao kay hipokrito. Diba? Lastly, moral standards are associated with special emotions and vocabulary. Associated is not the same as based on. Okay? So as I keep saying, ang moralidad wala nakabase sa tong feelings, wala nakabase sa tong emotion, pero associated siya sa mga special na emotions and special na vocabulary. Okay? Prescriptivity indicates that the practical or action guiding nature of moral prescriptivity indicates the practical or action guiding nature of moral standards. Okay? So moral standards have words that help us, that suggest certain actions, mo guide sa tong actions. Okay? These moral standards are generally put forth as injunction or imperatives, such as do not kill, do no unnecessary harm, and love your neighbor. These principles are proposed for use to advise and to influence to action. Retroactively, this feature is used to evaluate behavior, to assign praise and blame, and to produce feelings of satisfaction or of guilt. Okay? So what then does this mean? Diba, for example, when you read and understand the 10 Commandments, that is what we mean by action guiding na vocabulary. They guide you to do and not to do things. Diba? Do not kill. Diba? Do not steal. Do not covet your neighbor's goods. Do not covet your neighbor's wives. Diba? These are things that guide you. Diba? This guides you towards action. Mga action na angay ilikay o mga action na dapat o na angay jud buhaton. Okay? And these are made to be practical. All right? So when you, for example, if I tell you kung maingon ko ayaw pang cheat. Okay? If I tell you during the exam, do not cheat, siguro, of course, the common sense thing to do is, kaya mag-cheat. Ako na gud gaingon. Di ba? Not only because tungod ako gaingon, pero I know na akong pagmando na di ka dapat mag-cheat kay gikan sa kaayuhan na moralidad na di ka dapat mag-cheat. Di ba? So, if I catch you cheating, for example, syempre, maulawan ka. Sometimes maulawan ka dili tungod magmahay ka na nag-cheat ka, say maulawan ka or magmahay ka tungod nasakpan ka. And those are two different things, di ba? But regardless, there is a subsequent emotion once makasaban ka, once magkuan ka, mabuhat kag butang na dili dapat ning mabuhaton. Di ba? Magmahay ka, maghinulsol ka. Right? Whereas if you do the right thing, di ba? Do not kill, so wala ka ni patay. When you do that, nipugong ka, bahalag gigil na kay ka, gusto nimo patyon ang tao, but kabalo ka na dili maayo. Labi na imong basihanan ra kay imong kalagot. Okay? You may feel satisfied. Okay? So, ma-produce siya feelings, pero dili feelings ang basihanan sa moralidad. Dili feelings ang basihanan sa kaayuhan. Okay? Pero maka-produce siya feelings once the action is done o the moment na makabati ta sa consequences sa tong actions. Okay? So those are moral standards. Those are the characteristics of moral standards. Right? Mas complicated siya. Syempre, kay ang tao complicated pod. Sometimes we see one thing pero deep inside there is another intention. But realidad sad na siya. Okay? So what then are non-moral standards? Unsay characteristics niya? This is simpler, basically. Okay? So non-moral standards refer to rules that are unrelated to moral or ethical consideration. Okay? Rules that are unrelated to moral or ethical consideration. Either these standards are not necessarily linked to morality or by nature lack ethical sense. Basic examples of non-moral standards include rules of etiquette, fashion standards, rules in games, and various house rules. Okay? So, house rules, for example, ayaw pag-on og mic. Okay? That's a rule. Rule na nako. Okay? Kung i-break na nimo, buot ba pasabot na daotan ka na pagkatao? Yes or no? Dili, di ba? Wala may mamatay kung mag-on kag mic. Di lang ko gusto na ma-disrupt ang class, di ba? It doesn't make you a bad person. Kumbaga wala siya, di na ka kinahanglan tan-awon tong 6 characteristics sa moral standards para makaingon ka na dili maayong gibuhat. Okay? Though dili gyapon siya maayo kay wala ka ni sunod sa akong giingon, isipin yung maestro. Okay? Example ni siya na but dili kay siya kinahanglan harsh ang reaction. Okay? Ahay mas lamang na action nakapatay kag tao or nag-on kag mic sa klase ni Sir Anjik. Di ba? So alright. Good. So syempre dili pud makatarungan kung mo react ko dako kay big deal kay sa kuha na yawa-yawa na akong estudyante tungod lang nag-on mic siya na akong rules kay mag-off mic. So di siya makatarungan, di ba? So sa non-moral standards, mo judge gyapon tag right and wrong, pero wala na consideration sa moralidad. Kana ray difference. They both look at right and wrong behavior. Ang difference lang is that sa moral standards mo tan-aw tag mga consideration na mahulog na sa moral. Okay? Sa moralidad. Okay? So, as long as it affects the life of another person, whether it's in the negative or positive, dira ta makaingon na kung maayo or daotan ng tao. Okay? Sa non-moral standards, you may break some rules. It may be intentional or not. Or most of the time siguro it's not intentional. So, dili na kinahanglan na ignanti kag daotan ka na tao. Siguro labad lang ka, pero you can do better. Okay? Dili ka angay ihusga o harsh na kahusgahan kung gamay ra kay siya na issue. Gets ninyo so far, my dear students? Questions before we proceed? Question. Hello? Hello? Napa mo? Alright, so nasabtan na to, my dear students. Hopeful. Alright. So, mo to siya. There is a difference still ha, na adri kalahian ang moral standards and non-moral standards. Though, pareha sila standards na makahusga kung sakto ang behavior or dili. But, there is a difference sa, let's say, intensity sa consequences. Okay? Wala man kay consequence kung kuan dili ka magsuot og uniform, di ba? Rule man na sa school, mosulod ka, naka-uniform, mag-uniform jud ka, or mag-ID ka kung wala ka uniform, or kung pwede pa dili mag-uniform, right? But dili ka kinahanglan husgahan og ayo, di ba? Siguro na kay reason, right? Di ba? Naboy uban na harsh ra kayo, right? So that's what we mean by non-moral standards. Wala na ethical consideration. Not unless mo tuyuon nimo na magpakalabad, di ba? What if for example gadulot tag basketball then gituyo nimo na sikhan akong chest para lang makashoot kag tarong? That's not wrong. That's not correct. Mali na gani siya sa non-moral standards, mali pod siya sa moral standards kay gituyo man nimo. Gets niyo? Okay? So, we talked about standards, di ba? But we also have to consider a lot of things, di ba? Like the concept or the idea na of freedom. Alright. So, when we have freedom, di ba? Kung natin mga standards, kung na standards ang society, gahad lang ba siya sa atong freedom? Di ba? Ay, sa tubag. Okay? So, consider this. Gusto ta free ta, pero daghan kayo expectations. Imong expectations imong kaugalingon, ang expectations sa imong family, ang expectations sa komunidad, di ba? How does freedom fit in kung natay standards? First and foremost, how do we understand freedom, di ba? Diyon sa pagsabot unsay freedom. Okay. So, sige daw, before we proceed, sa chat box, please mention, how do you, unsay pagsabot nimo sa freedom? How do you understand freedom? Okay? Chat lang daw, chat sa. How do you, unsay freedom? Freedom para sa ko, sir, is ingani. Ang freedom, sir, kay ingana. Okay? Sa akong pagsabot, sir, ang freedom kay blank. Sige daw. Give me an opinion. Alright. Freedom, sir, like kanang way magbuot sa kuha ka sa kung gusto buhaton pero in a good way. Freedom to choose whatever I want. Freedom, sir, kay kana mo gusto na way magbuot sa imo. Freedom to express what you feel. Freedom for me, sir, kanang free kayo ka sa tanan nimo gusto buhaton. Freedom, sir, kay kanang free ka unsay buhaton nimo, tanan kanang way makabuot. Freedom sa kuha, sir, kanang mabuhat nimo yung gusto, mabuhat nimo yung gusto. Rights of every person to live in a peaceful life because people have rights to do. Okay? Alright. Thank you. So, basically, yeah, it's a common conception. Okay? So, common kini siya na answer na ang freedom kay akong freedom na mabuhat sa akong gusto. Okay. Pero nakapamalandong ba jud ta sa itong gipang-ingon? Yan na rin. Nakapamalandong ba jud ta kung aware jud ta sa mga gusto nato? Di ba? uh, we can agree na freedom is good. Oo, maayo mo rin ang freedom. But is there such a thing as too much freedom? Diba? Okay. Very good. At least na-consider po na nato. If you recall, no, I mentioned something na kung ang tao na kapasidad na mabuhat og maayo, usay makalimot pud ta na ang tao na pay kapasidad na buhat og daotan. Diba? I think pud no na ma-acknowledge pud ninyo na though pareha ta tao, di ba? I'm a person, ikaw person ka. Di ba? But bahalag pareha raon ta tao. Lain ang yapon ta. Lain ta gusto, lain tag pamaagi, lain tag batasan, di ba? Lain tag konsepto sa kinabuhi, di ba? Okay? Madawat ni mo imong self kung sagyud ka, okay, pwede. So let's try to not water down, let's try to ito ka ni? Let's not overgeneralize the notion of freedom. Okay, daghan mong classic freedom. Freedom of religion, freedom of speech, freedom of the press, freedom of expression, things like that. And na insured ni siya. Okay? But you also have to realize, okay? You also have to realize na ang freedom, okay? Ako free. I'm free. Not in the sense na wala ko na priso, pero as a human being, na ako'y freedom. Bahalag anak ko, bahalag na ako'y employer, diba? Bahalag na ako'y ginatuuhan na Ginoo, I am still free. Diba? Ikaw, kamo na mga estudyante, bahalag feel ninyo na to some extent na ay mga hadlang, you still have some freedoms. Diba? Pero consider this pod, ang usa ka tao na rapist, ang aso ka tao na mamatay tao, free man pod sila. As people, not in the sense na wala sila priso, pero they are free. Okay? So, sige na, okay na. Let's focus sa discussion. Naman my point, freedom to do what you want. Pero what if gusto ko mang-rape? Dapat ba na ako buhaton? What if gusto ko mapatay tao? I want to be free. Dapat free ko mapatay tao. Sige daw, what do you think? Would you agree? Diba? Alright. Okay. So that's what we mean. Munang when we say bitaw, kung moingon tag mga ingana na ang freedom is the freedom to do what I want, usahay we assume man good na tanan atong ginabuhat kay maayo. When that's not the case. Diba? Dili sa tanan oras atong kagustuhan mo isakto. Okay? So freedom does not necessarily mean na buhaton imong tanan, yung gusto. Okay? So let's try to understand first. Let's look at two particular philosophers na muhatag og saktong or at least mutabang natog sabot sa konsepto sa freedom. Labi na freedom sa konsepto sa moralidad. Okay? Pero first and foremost, tanaw nato unsay kapasidad sa tao. What is the human capability in terms of understanding? Okay? Humanity is endowed with the capability of reason. Every individual can think, decide, judge, critique, reject, object, obey, disobey, and whatever action that deals with the need of the mind. Diba? Okay, kung wala kay saktong panahon-una, unsaon nimo pag saktong judge, saktong pang-critique, saktong pag-desisyon, diba? Human intellect is so unique to humans themselves that every action always goes through a catalyst, which is our minds. Without our minds, we cannot do the many actions attributed to our species, just as the actions mentioned above. So with that in mind, regardless of the limits given to us by society, okay, so bahalag limitado atong freedom, we still have some freedom, di ba? Given if daghan kay limitations ang atong society, atong community, tungod silang expectations sa tua, kung unsay kadagan sa atong huna-huna, kita ray makakontrol ana. Okay? No one can think for us. If there are people who can think for us, kita raga ato raga po ng choice na musugot ta na lain tao ang mo decide para sa tua. Okay? So we are always free no matter how imprisoned we feel by the expectations of other people. Okay? Freedom is given to every human being, whether handicapped or not. Okay. So you may agree or disagree with this, no? So siguro you sa imong feeling kay dili ko free sir oy kay daghan kay hadlang. Well, at the end of the day, sa mga hadlang, you still have the freedom to choose to do something about it. Diba? Of course, that's more medyo it's not really too much to assume na just nagyapon kay kapasidad na maka-decide para sa imong kaugalingon. Okay? So freedom within the context of morality. Every action we make is based on our capability to make a decision. No human act is an act without freedom. Or we can say that every action you make is based on your freedom to choose what you think you should do. Your freedom to choose what you think you should do. Kining last, okay, palikog mute. Okay. So this last part, every action you make is based on your freedom to choose what you think you should do. Does that automatically mean na ang imong gihuna-huna na binubuhaton kay sakto? No. Okay? It doesn't mean na sakto siya. Okay? It doesn't automatically make it right just because you think it's right. Okay? That's not how it works. Okay? Kung ang tao, again, may kapasidad na makahuna-huna sa sakto, ang tao po na po'y kapasidad na mamali. Okay? So, let's look at two particular viewpoints on freedom and morality, in morality. We will look at Jean-Paul Sartre and his notion of freedom and responsibility. O tanawon po nato si C.S. Lewis on moral interdependence. Okay? So, let's look at Jean-Paul Sartre. So, si Sartre was an atheist, existentialist philosopher, critic, novelist, dramatist, and Nobel Prize winner. He is notable for his many works such as Nausea, The Devil and the Good Lord, and The Flies, to name a few. Si Sartre, being an atheist, revolves his philosophy of freedom and morality on the basis that humanity only depends on himself and should solely be responsible for himself and is only accountable to himself. Okay? Ang tao daw, kay wala lagi daw Ginoo, kay nakadepende siyang kaugalingon, responsable siyang kaugalingon, ug manubag siyang kaugalingon. Tungod wala daw Ginoo, dili nato attribute dili nato dili nato ma-attribute ang atong pagkamaayo o atong pagkadaotan sa Ginoo, sa usa ka being na maigna nato na mas lamang sa tuwa. Okay? Kung maayo ka, kung daotan ka, okay? Ayaw nagpasumangil nagikan sa Ginoo imong batasan na ikaw ra may kontrolado sa imong batasan. Okay? So, we are accountable for our own actions and our own existence. Manubag ta sa tanan natong binuhatan, nabuhat naman, mabuhat pa o buhatonon. Okay? O responsable o manubag pud ta sa kaugalingon natong kinabuhi. Okay? So, sa iyang libro, Nausea, we find a quote na suitable sa atong lecture karon. Okay? According to Sartre, man is condemned to be free because once thrown into the world, he is responsible for everything he does. Man is condemned to be free. So, di ba, earlier, you all said na freedom is the freedom to do what I want. So, you look at it and think na positibo atong freedom. Pero kay Sartre, dili positive ang freedom. In fact, condemned lagi daw ta. Punishment daw nato ang freedom. That is according to Sartre. Why are we punished with freedom? Ano punishment man ang freedom in the first place? So he continues, tungod the moment na natawo ta, okay, bahalag dependent pa ta sa tong ginikanan tong bata pa ta, we are free. naa na ng freedom the moment na natawo ta. Okay? Even though wala na to gipili na matawo ta, the moment na naa na ta diri, we have this punishment of being free. So ano punishment ang freedom? Ngano? Tungod kay sa tanan action, sa tanan buhaton nimo pinaagi sa imong freedom, ikaw responsable sa tanan imong gibuhat. Okay? So, let's try to understand what Sartre tries to tell us here. So, the choices you make, ang mga oportunidad na wa nimo nakuha, ang mga maayo na buhatonon na wa nimo gibuhat, pero mabuhat unta nimo, ang tao na imong pasakitan, intentional ba or dili, ang imong panglibak, ang imong pangmakak, ang imong pagtuon, okay? Ang imong pagkapalaigit, imong pagkabalaan. Technically, ikaw ray responsable ana tanan. Okay? You cannot blame God. You cannot blame your parents. You cannot blame your circumstances. Ikaw nagpili sa imong mga gibuhat. O responsable ka ana. Bahalag dili na nimo ang kunon. Okay? So there is no other choice than to act on the freedom by which we are condemned to have. Since we cannot do anything outside our personal freedoms, then the manner by which we act is what defines our principles and virtues. How one understands morality is dependent on how one executes one's freedom. Okay? So, paagi sa atong paggamit sa atong freedom, dira nato usahay makit-an kung unsay prinsipyo nato, unsay mga bertudes natong ginadapigan. Ug usahay atong pagsabot sa moralidad nakadepende pod kung giunsa nato atong freedom. Okay? So it can still be wrong, but at the end of the day responsable ka ug dapat nimo dawaton ang consequences sa tanan nimo gibuhat. Okay? Harsh ba? Medyo harsh pa minawon, no? Imagine a world without God, but then again, he still makes sense. Ngano ang atong circumstances pasangin lang nato ang Ginoo na kita may ga action dire, diba? So that's first Jean Paul Sartre. Now let's look at C.S. Lewis. Okay, so if you're familiar with the Chronicles of Narnia, katong libro o katong movies, si C.S. Lewis ang author ana. Okay, he is an Irish-born scholar, novelist, and author of about 40 books, many of them on Christian apologetics, including the Screwtape Letters and Mere Christianity. His works of greatest lasting fame may be the Chronicles of Narnia, a series of 7 children's books that have become classics of fantasy literature. Okay? So Lewis, usa ka Kristiyano, isa ka tawo na motuo Ginoo, gisentro niya ang iyang pilosopiya, ang iyang pagsabot sa moralidad ug sa freedom sa iyang Kristohanong pagtuo. Okay? So according sa iyang libro, Mere Christianity, ana siya gikumpara niya ang moralidad o ang freedom sa usa ka fleet of ships. So, say fleet of ships kaning nasa picture karon, di ba? Lain-laing barko. But that is one fleet. Okay? A fleet is comprised of many boats or ships. So morality and freedom are like a fleet of ships, matud niya. And wala ra ba? Okay? Sorry. So within one fleet are a multitude of ships, often around 7 ships or 30 or more ships comprise a fleet. So, unsay major point ni Lewis sa iyang pagkumpara sa fleet ug sa relasyon sa moralidad ug sa freedom, diba? So, naitulo ka major points. Ang mga barko or ang fleet kay una, kada barko dapat dili mo harang sa laing barko aron dili bangga. Tama, di ba? Kadua, every individual ship must be seaworthy. In other words, tanan barko dapat gatrabaho tarong. Okay? Ga-function properly. Okay? And lastly, ang fleet na ay saktong agian. There is a proper course. Alright? So, how do we relate this to moralidad? Morality is social. Okay, first. In the same way sa ang barko, kay dili dapat moharang sa laing barko, we understand that morality is social. Okay? It is concerned with fairness and harmony between people. Okay? Concerned siya na kung fair ka o malinawon imong kinabuhi uban sa laing tao. Okay? Kaduha, Ang morality is individual. Okay? It is concerned with harmony within the individual person. Okay? So una, social, dapat malinawon ka og fair sa imong isig ka tawo. Ikaduha, individual pod siya. Okay? Unsaon man ang nakay kalinaw og fairness sa lain tao, kung dili pod ka, wala kay kalinaw sa imong kaugalingon. Okay? Og ikatulo, morality has a purpose connected with the overall purpose of human life. Okay? So, social siya, concerned siya sa lain tao. Individual siya, concerned po siya sa imong kaugalingon. Okay? O naa siya'y purpose. There is a purpose nga no naa siya. Okay? Freedom and morality are like that. They have a purpose. What's say purpose niya? It has to deal with others and it has to deal with yourself. Okay? And when you treat these two properly, ga-contribute ka sa overall purpose sa human life. Okay, so let's compare the comparison ug ang atong lesson. So, una, no ship gets in the way of other ships. Otherwise, they may collide and cause an incident. Diba common sense? Kung muharang kag barko nagadagan, syempre bangga jud ka, diba? Likewise, humans, being rational beings, have the intellect to not get in the way of other people, knowing that other people are rational beings as well, in order to avoid unnecessary conflict. Okay? So, ikaw na naa sa saktong huna-una, ikaw na nauntay buot, ngan, dili na ka dapat mamikil. Diba? Mamikil kag tao, then, what does that say about you? Diba? What does that say about the relationship you have with other people? Okay? Necessary ba nang mangaway ka? Diba dili? Necessary ba nang mamikil ka? Di ba dili? Necessary ba nang magdumot ka? Di ba dili? Okay. Kinahanglan ba jud ka magdumot? Or kinahanglan ba jud ka magpadala sa iyong pangdumot sa laing tao? Okay? Kadua. Now, every ship is independent from the rest of the ships. Every ship can function even without the help of other ships. And to ascertain that no accident happens, it does not get in the way of other ships. Okay? So, ang ship, independent siya. How unsaon pagkuan function sa ship kung dili siya maka-function by itself with its crew yung captain. The same thing sa tao. Likewise, every individual human being functions individually without having to depend on other people. One makes sure to check his own bearings. Okay? So you don't have to dili dapat na magsikag depende sa lain tao. You have to be able to function by yourself. Kay individual good ka, gusto kag freedom unya mo depende ka sa lain tao. Diba? Gusto kag freedom mo buhat sa imong gusto pero ang imong ginabuhat kay musalig gyapon kag lain tao, diba? So dili nimo ma-check imong self, dili nimo masaligan imong kaugalingon. Dapat unta, at least according to Lewis, i-check po nimong kaugalingon. Ila-ilaha imong kaugalingon. Ila-ilaha unsay kaya nimo, unsay dili nimo kaya. Okay? So you have to sa ngalan na tao ka, naunta kay kapasidad maghuna-huna para sa kaugalingon. Okay? Katulo, no ship goes to sea without a proper course. Walay molarga na barko kung wala siya kabalo kung asa padulong. Okay? A ship cannot sail from the port of Iligan na padulong unta sa Cebu o niya niabot noon siya Tokyo. Diba? Likewise, sa moralidad, morality serves a purpose for the good of humanity. Morality cannot be for the benefit of an individual or a group, but for the good of all. Okay? Ang moralidad dili para sa imo alang. Ang moralidad dili lang pud para sa usa ka grupo. Ang moralidad para sa kaayuhan sa tanan. Okay? To summarize, kay Lewis's explanation of morality, kay dili siya unique siyang kaugalingon. Okay? Dili siya ang gahimuan ni. Pero kuan siya overall prinsipyo sa tanan religious tradition throughout the human race. Okay? Dili siya unique sa Christianity, dili siya unique sa Islam, but every religious tradition tells us this particular principle. What principle is this? To avoid harming others is the main principle of every religion. Okay? To make sure that we are in harmony with others as well as ourselves. And by extension, you contribute to the good of everyone. Okay? So if you are good to others, if you are good to yourself, by extension, maayo pod kag trato sa lain tao. Maayo kag trato sa daghan, sa tanan. Okay? Kabalo ka sa values yung kagalingon, kabalo ka sa values yung isig ka tao, you contribute sa kaayuhan sa kinabuhi. Okay? So we have one, isa harsh ka, responsable ka, which is pero tinuod gihapon. The other one medyo touchy-feely, which is still true. They both carry a sense of truth sa ilang ginaingon, sa ilang pag-study or sa ilang pag-explain what is freedom and morality. Okay? Si Sartre medyo harsh, pero harshness is necessary para makatuon ta. Si Lewis wants us to be cooperative of others and to appreciate our individual selves sa atong kakayahan. Okay? You mix these two and they will help further our understanding sa freedom ug sa morality. Pero what can we learn? Okay? Unsa may matun-an nato sa ilaa? So we have seen the viewpoints on morality by an atheist and a theist. But what value can we get from these two great thinkers of history? Mas importante, unsay makuha ninyo, unsay value ninyong nakit-an? Naminaw ba jud mo or kaning naa sa school nagtabi ba mo? Unsay may priority ninyo, maminaw or magtabi? Okay? Things like that. Namba jud mo natun-an or gayaw-yaw ra ko diri na wala lang. Ana bitaw? Unsay value inyong nakit-an? At least for me, or what I hope na nakuha ninyo, gikan kang Sartre, you have to be responsible for your actions since you are a free agent and your actions are based on your impulses and judgment. Okay? Tanan nimo binuhatan nakabase sa imong reaksyon o sa imong panghuna-huna. Okay? O the moment nagibuhat nimo ang action, dili ka ka-escape sa consequences sa imong actions. Okay? Pwede ka mudagan, pero in one way or another, muapas gihapon ang consequences. Okay? Sa actions nimo. Okay? Para kay Lewis, our freedom is the freedom to not harm others. To be in harmony with others as well as yourself. Okay? And this sounds better, no? This sounds better than saying, sir, ang freedom na mabuhat sa kung gusto. Okay, pero unsa di ang gusto? Sure ka, tanan imong gusto, maayo. Gets ninyo? Diba? This sounds better, diba? Or it sounds more mas naani siya sa realidad na ang kinabuhi kay ang moralidad kay dili lang para sa imoa. Wala ka nabuhi para sa imong kaugalingon. Okay? So atong morality guides us towards harmony. Mugayad siya padulong sa kalinaw. Okay? But of course, ideal ni siya. We still live in a world na daghan kay issues. But we end our discussion there. Next meeting, we'll discuss moral dilemmas, dili patamag exam. Okay? So, with that, we end our lessons. I hope you naka-appreciate mo sa discussion for today. And before you go, palihog kog, comment sa pinakabago na ko na post. Acknowledge it para sa inyong attendance. Then, ang akong record, i-post na ko later. Alright?